This post-PMP training sessions, we wanted to explain to you, the PMP questions, the questions of the PMP exam in a little more practical way, okay, in a little more different way, right? Now, we know that most of the people, when they're preparing for their PMP exam, they try, to understand the course and then understand how to answer the questions. Probably, uh, they learn the elimination techniques or the preferred answers. And we noticed that a lot of people try to memorize the questions, okay? Because a lot of questions repeat one way or another in the PMP exam, so they try to memorize the questions. Or at least they try to have their own hints how to figure out which is the right answer. However, in this video, I'm going to try to explain to you the questions which are kind of similar to what you might get in the PMP exam, and how they fit in a real life scenario. Okay. So, for example, this question here, it says, a large matrix organization is adopting a new communications approach. This is necessary because their projects often require the resourcing of expert knowledge in the form of specialists from various departments and divisions. Now, what should the project manager do to set up effective communications? Okay, focus on the recipient's needs and not the information itself. Use the highest possible technical language and avoid using metaphors. Ensure that messages sent to the recipients are delivered, or plan on transmitting the information in an easily understandable manner. Now, let's figure out, like, does this scenario really happen in real life? Like, in real life, do we have large matrix organizations? Yes, we do. Do these organizations or any other form of organization, do they try to adopt new communication approaches? Yes, they do. And here it explains, like it says, this is necessary because the projects in this organization, they often require resourcing of experts or expert knowledge, from, in the form of specialists from different departments and divisions. Now, this scenario, yes, it exists in real life. Now, guys, with this video, I'm not trying to help you pass the exam. I'm trying to help you go beyond that. If each scenario, okay, because we said many times in the PMP exam there are 180 questions. On average, 170 questions, they are scenario based, situational, and you have like this one question and four possible and four choices and one you pick one answer. Okay, almost 170 questions, almost. Okay, maybe a little less, a little more, depends on your exam. Now, in the PMP training, which we had together, you probably noticed that we focused 99% on helping you understand the mindset of PMI in answering the questions. Now, here we will go a little beyond that. Now, here we're going to try to help you imagine each scenario as it happens in real life. Because in the PMP training, what we do is we try to understand the scenario and then we focus on the answers. Like you say, you know what, this contains an elimination technique, one of those techniques we have mentioned in our PMP training. This also contains an elimination technique. Well, between C and D, well, D is better because of this and that. Now, we follow that path in the PMP training because we wanted you to pass the exam and get your certification. Now, here, this is a post PMP training program. Okay, we want you to understand each scenario. Okay, now it's not about focusing on the answers. Now it's more about imagining the situation. Did you really go through such a situation? Did you witness, maybe did you see the similar scenario in real life, or can you imagine it? Because if you have already gone through a similar scenario, that's great. Okay, now you probably know how to better act in such a scenario. But if you haven't seen that yet, and you're planning on getting your PMP certification, or you already have it, you got it, okay, now it's time for you to try to learn about as many scenarios and organizations and structures and situations as possible, because once you have that PMP certification, we want you to succeed. We want you to succeed in your job role, in your assignment, in your project, in your mission, in whatever change you're leading. All right. So here, yes, of course, there are organizations which are large. Their metrics, they're large, like many divisions. Here it says many divisions, many departments. So it is large. It is large, and definitely we need to have when it says a new communication approach, seems like there is a communication approach. Maybe it wasn't successful. Now they are adopting a new communication approach. So here you need to figure out, okay, what did my organization where I work go with through such a scenario? Am I going to to be one day in an organization which might go through such a scenario? If yes, how should I act? How can I be prepared? Okay, so here in this video and maybe the next videos, we will focus on helping you succeed in your projects, because we already have helped you pass the exam and get the certification. Now here we're going to hit two birds with one stone. Of course, these are questions, for the people who are preparing for their PMP certification, but also for those who already have the certification or maybe are not thinking of getting the certification yet, but they would like to succeed. And now here we're depending on the way PMI views the best answers on PMI's mindset, how PMI recommends you act or you behave, or what PMI recommends you do in such scenarios. Okay, so here now, what should the project manager do in order to set up effective communications? Okay, now should we focus on the recipient's needs only, but not the information? I don't think that makes sense, actually, okay, because we really also need to make sure that we, in this new communication approach, we focus also on information, okay? Should we use very technical language? Like, not all stakeholders are technical, okay? Sometimes we even need to use metaphors, to explain certain situations. Like, when you sit with technical people and you need to explain to them what the customer wants, you need to use sometimes metaphor, or vice versa. Technical people also need to use metaphor. Okay, so I don't think answer B is the best one. Okay, now ensuring the messages are sent to the recipients and delivered. Yes, that might be important. In a new communication approach. However, planning on transmitting the information in an easily understandable manner, this seems like a more proper answer actually to this question. Okay, so if we go back to the context, so guys, if you ever find yourself in an organization which is a matrix, like it's a mix between functional and projectized, okay, and it's large, like many departments, many divisions, and they're adopting a new communication approach. So what you need to do is make sure that the transmission, the fluidity of the information will be as smooth as possible, and the information will be shared in an easily understandable manner, okay? Because you will have people from various departments and divisions. Like, imagine you have people from legal department, people from design department, and people from marketing department, and people from product development department. They don't speak the same language, okay? So you need to make sure that the information is being transmitted in an easily understandable manner, okay? So you see here now in this series of videos, we're not focusing on helping you pass the PMP exam. We're rather focusing on explaining or helping you dive into these real scenarios. We want you to imagine as if you're living in such a scenario. So then if you face it in your current work, or if you might face it in your next work or your next assignments, you know that you have already gone through similar situations, even if Like it was just theoretically, okay? All right, let's have another question. So, a steering committee member is complaining about the weekly report, and this situation happens a lot. Like, we project managers, we always face such a situation, okay? So sometimes in our projects we have weekly steering committee meetings, or maybe we have weekly steering committee or weekly reports dedicated to the steering committee members. Now here we have a member from the STICO complaining about the report. They say that the report is too long and it contains too many details. Some of these details are unnecessary, okay? So as a result, they're unable to obtain the main message and take action. Now this happens a lot. You know what? This repeats almost in every second project. Almost in every second project, somebody like a stakeholder, whether it's a key stakeholder or not, they're complaining about the information in the report. They say, it's missing some information, or maybe it's too long, or maybe too many unnecessary information, details, etc. You will face it, guys. Now, you know what? You will face this, whether you're a project manager or even just a person doing reporting, because, at some point in your life, you definitely will report, in some of your assignments, you will definitely need to report. Now, even if you're not a project manager, even if you're just a technical person, even technical people, sometimes they need to report. And, the way you as a technical person view reporting and the way the stakeholders view the reporting, maybe they're different. So you see, this is a real scenario. You need to understand. Now, what should the project manager, of course, most of the questions are, I think 99% of the questions are about the project manager, since this is a PMP certification context, okay? But still, whatever we're learning in this PMP context, it applies to different contexts, okay? Not just the project manager and the project management, okay? Now, what should the project manager do to avoid similar complaints? This is good. Now, here the purpose of this question, or the meaning of the question is, how can you avoid this from happening again? How can we correct it? Okay, so send a shorter daily report to the steering committee member, or demonstrate, because these answers, really, like if we put this like project in real life, and we have 4 different project managers, or let's say 10 different project managers, or 10 different people. Now, really, and we give them these choices. Now, some of them, some would pick answer A, some would pick probably answer B or C or D. Okay, it really depends on their view of things. Okay, and here, this is why we have these videos or this PMP training, is to tell you guys, what. There are organizations which organize, or let's say try to shape project management in the world. One of the most famous ones is PMI. And PMI, the way it's built, project management and is structured, is based on the real life scenarios and practices from real project managers. So hundreds of project managers are volunteering with PMI, and also PMI adopted really world famous theories, okay, and practices, and they try to put that into action. So now, if imagine you're really in this project and you have really a steering committee member complaining, now how can you avoid this complaint, in the future? Send a shorter report to the steering committee member, or demonstrate the weekly reports in a presentation for the steering committee member, or verify the information needed for steering committee members, or present the status at a weekly meeting with the steering committee. Now, yes, you might say, maybe some people say, what, then I will just send a shorter report. Okay. But what if that report will not contain what that member really needs? Some might say, what, I will demonstrate the reports in a presentation on a weekly basis. Some people do this. Yes, we have witnessed some people doing this. Yes, because we have gone through such scenarios, okay? And we know that some people chose this path. Some people would say, what, first thing I need to do, or maybe the best thing I need to do is verify what kind of information this member needs, so I can adjust my reporting according to it. Well, yeah, some people do this, and that sounds like really a reasonable action. Some might say, what, I will just present the status at a weekly meeting, and that's it. Really, we're different people, we're different personalities. So, everyone will act differently. Now, it's not, now, this video is not about preparing just for the PMP exam. I need you guys. We want you really to think about as if we're in this real project, or we're in this project really, okay? And we're figuring out what to do, okay? Now, out of these four choices, PMI recommends that if there is somebody complaining about, the kind of information being shared, you know what? Why don't you ask them what do they need? So by asking them what is the information they need, or what is the level of information or level of details they need, then you can adjust your reporting and then make changes to your communication plan, and then you can avoid similar complaints in the future. So now, if you have ever faced such a scenario, or if you haven't yet faced such a scenario, but definitely one day, at one point in your career, you will face it. So this is what is the best course of action to do, okay? Now, we know some people will choose A or B or C. Now, again, I'm not talking about the exam. I'm talking about real life projects. In real life projects, some people would choose to act according to answer A. Some would choose to act according to answer B or D. But from the point of view, from the perspective of PMI, the best thing to do is try to, really confirm the kind of information they need, and then you will have, the necessary or adequate level of reporting in the future for this member. Okay, so please always take each question as a real life scenario. Let's move on to another situation. You see, no, I don't want to say questions. I'd rather say situations. Let's move on to another situation. Let's try to depict it. Okay, so a project team delivered a critical deliverable to a customer. This happens all the time. I think in all our work, always we have a customer who, has identified certain deliverables as critical. That exists in our work. Now, the customer complained that the maintenance manual was not included. You know what? Personally, I've had that. And I know some of you have had that. Yes, sometimes we just forgot about delivering the maintenance manual. Yeah. Now, what should you do as a project manager? What should you do next? All right. Now, yes, we have gone through that. Now, some people might choose in such a scenario to review the terms and conditions of the contract. Well, you know what they say? Let's figure out if this maintenance manual was already agreed upon in the contract. If yes, then we will create it and deliver it. If not, then we will just go back to the customer and say, you know what? It's not part of the contract. It was not agreed upon. Yes, some people will choose such an answer. Now, submit a change request to include the manual. Some people will just go ahead and raise a change request in order to, deliver the manual. Some people would choose to do that, even though it's not the biggest portion of people would do that. I think most of the people would just, go back to the contract, to the agreement, and check it and see if it's already included in there or not, this maintenance manual. About review the stakeholder engagement plan. Well, I don't think, people just go here because anyway, like they know this is not about the engagement plan. I think anyone, facing such a situation would not think about, let me go check my engagement plan. Actually, that's not the point. And I think most people in such scenarios, they get the point. They know what they need to do, okay? Add the needed manual and update the risk log. Now, some people, yes, might go ahead and say, oh yeah, you have forgotten about it. Now, they can add the needed manual. Of course, they might say, yeah, we know we have missed it. We think it was already part of the contract. Yeah, some people might might choose answer D because they know what's in the contract. Again, guys, remember, I'm explaining things in real, as it happens in real life. I'm not now dedicating this series of scenarios to the PMP exam, like per se, like strictly to that. No. I'm just, imagining how things would be in real life. And update the risk log. Now here, updating the risk log has nothing to do with with the situation. So definitely the right course of action, or the course of action that most people would choose to do, again, I'm not saying the best answer, to choose in the exam. No, forget about the exam. Now, usually when people face such a scenario, they usually would go, back to reviewing the agreement and checking if the maintenance manual was supposed to be part of it or not. So that's what they would do. And you see, now we are turning the PMP exam preparation questions
okay, or these mock questions, we're turning them into real life scenarios. Now these are very similar to questions you might get in the PMP exam, really similar, okay? But in the PMP exam, when people are stressed, they're pressured because of the time, because of the, the whole atmosphere of the exam, they would just read the answers and try to eliminate based on the elimination techniques which we have taught them in the training, so they can find the right answer, and they answer correctly, they move on to the next question, and they get the certification. Yes, we did that already in hundreds of our videos. Now it's time to put you in real life scenarios, okay? Now let's look at another scenario. Now a project manager has taken over a project that has been without a project manager for the last couple of weeks. Yes, this scenario existed probably thousands of times around the world, okay? Over decades and decades of years and time, okay? So yeah, that happened. Like many times, projects are left without project manager for some time. Now the team is feeling lost, and there are a few team members who are confused about the next step and the final outcome of the project. Yes, if you ever take a project, if you ever take over a project that's been without a project manager for some time, you definitely will find the team being lost, confused. They don't know, what to do next. What this project is supposed to deliver, etc. Yes, you can find yourself in such a scenario. Maybe as a team member, or maybe as a project manager, or maybe as a management member, okay, like part of the steering committee or the management. Yes, you might find yourself in such a scenario. Now as a project manager, what should you do, in such a scenario? Okay, now set short-term goals in order to create a winning culture internally and praise team members for achieving them. Yeah, some people would choose to do that. They say, what? Let's give the team confidence. Let's set some short-term goals. Let's help the team achieve these goals. And once they do so, we try to praise them, so they can get their confidence back. Yeah, some people might choose to do that. Ask the sponsor to provide team members with a project direction regarding outcomes. Now, I think not so many people would choose to act like this. You see, I'm not talking about answers now. I'm not in the PMP exam context strictly or per se. No, no, no. I'm trying to think how people would act. Now, I don't think like people go to the sponsor and say, "Hey, sponsor, can you please give direction to the team?" I think most people wouldn't do that because they know the sponsor hired them, so they can do that. So they, as project managers, can do that. Now, avoid conflict and let the team self-organize on how they want to work on the project tasks. Now, yes, we have seen, we as project management coaches and experts, we've seen some people do that. Actually, I remember a situation where a colleague, who was also project manager, he was also confused himself when he found himself in a very similar situation, taking over a project, abandoned project, actually it was, okay? And you know what he did first? He approached them, he told them, "Hey guys, so how would you like to work? I let you choose, I let you decide." Well, he did that, I saw that, but I know that that's not the best approach PMI recommends. That's not what really PMI thinks is the best course of action. Okay? Escalate the situation to the steering committee and request that more time be allotted to the project. Well, I know that some people chose to act like, in this way. Yes, some people said, "You know what, I need time. The team is lost. I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I need time. I need time to understand. I need time to figure out the situation. You know what, I'm going to escalate this." Yes, some people did that. Yes, in real life. But we know that maybe that's not the best course of action. Yes, some people might say that's reasonable, to escalate, to ask for more time. But actually, what PMI probably recommends is, what? You need to be proactive. So you as a project manager in real life scenarios, in such a scenario, the probably the best course of action is try to think of setting short-term goals. Okay, maybe you try to create a culture of being winners. You try to help the team achieve some, even like small achievements, like make small achievements so they can get confidence. Praise them. okay, and praise the team, so then they don't feel lost anymore, okay, and they get confidence, okay, and this way you can even help them, like probably focus on the final outcome of the project once you explain it to them, okay. So you see here, I'm not trying to help you pass the exam. I'm trying to help you really, figure out what is the best course of action in real life projects. And I'm depending on these PMP questions in order to explain to you how to act in real life projects. I'm depending on these PMP style questions, okay? Because they're coming from real life scenarios. Let's look at another scenario, okay? So a project manager has just been appointed to a project that has two major deliverables. Both deliverables have the same level of priority and are to be delivered at the same time. Now, yes, many times we find ourselves as a delivery organization, okay? We find ourselves in such a scenario, like, we have two major deliverables, okay, in a project, and both have, are really high priority, okay, and they need to be delivered at the same time. Yes, it's the customer's requirement. Many times we find ourselves in such a scenario. Now, the members of the team, they're complaining about the lack of information regarding which deliverable needs to be finished first. And we have experienced this many, many times in our life. Yes, we have deliverable A, deliverable B, both are really high priority in this project. The customer is pushing, and the team is saying, you know what? We don't have capacity to work on both of them at the same time. We need to prioritize, We really don't know which one has to go first. So what should you do as a project manager if you face such a scenario? If you're in such a situation, with the team complaining about the lack of information, which deliverables needs to be finished first, both are high priority. Now, what should you do as a project manager? Now, meet with the sponsor and key stakeholders to assess each deliverables value to the organization and set execution priorities. Well, you know what? That sounds really reasonable. Okay, maybe that's the best course of action you need to do, right? Yes, get directions from the key stakeholders. Ask them to prioritize, okay, based on the value of each deliverable. Which deliverable has got the highest value to the organization, okay? So yeah, that really sounds like really, really reasonable action. All right. Again, here I'm not focusing on how to answer the exam. I'm rather trying to help you figure out how to act in such real life scenario, okay? Ask the stakeholders to cancel the project. Now, I think no one does that, okay? I think no one does that. You don't just go to the stakeholders and ask them to cancel, because, there are difficulties of meeting both, expected deliverables. And I think no one does that, okay? Companies don't hire people with such a mindset, all right? All right. Now, ask the team to start working on the easiest deliverable first, so they gain experience to execute the second deliverable. Now, I haven't personally faced project managers who do that. Start with the easiest one first. I think people are mature enough and are smart enough to figure out, actually, it's not about prioritizing the easiest one to be first, or, the toughest, the hardest one. I think people figure out that, we need to get direction. And they go back to answer A, okay? Require that the team execute both deliverables at the same time, since this was requested and approved in the charter. I think that, some might think about it as an option, but, with the complaints of the team, and if they're like in meetings, the same working location of the teams, and they see how the teams are complaining, I think they know that actually is the problem. Asking people to execute both deliverables at the same time, that's actually the problem. So again, here, this last sentence here, answer, if I would use the term answer D, that's the problem. That's the description of the problem. So actually, I think, based on real life experience, most people would ask for directions. They would go to the sponsor, they would go to the key stakeholders, and they would ask for directions and to set priorities, okay? And I think that's part of the logical thinking of people, okay? And that fits, with the recommendations of PMI. Now, of course, we're providing you with answers like what is the best choice, what is the best course of action, okay? As if, you're preparing for the PMP exam. But again, as I told you, we're preparing you, or we're trying to help you, know how to face the real life scenarios, right? Let's have another scenario. Let's look at another one. So a team is testing a product on multiple radio frequencies. Now, I'm not going to go into technical details because some people might say, "I've never had a project testing radio frequencies." Yeah, you don't have to. It's just a scenario here. We're looking at. Okay, some did, but most people didn't. Okay, which is fine. Okay, but we need to look at the idea itself, the situation. What is it describing? The project manager is informed that a new government policy expected, to come, within 2 weeks or in 2 weeks will mandate companies to obtain approval and licensing for frequency testing. Now, here, like, forget about the radio frequency testing. Now, we're talking about an ongoing project. Okay, and suddenly, there is a new regulation coming, like, it's a government policy, it's mandated. So it's a regulation, and it would require, something like, which is obtaining the approval and licensing for any frequency testing, right? So the team here, they've completed 80% of the testing, and they need 4 weeks to complete the remaining tests, all right? Now, this scenario, regardless of the technical aspect of it, it means like sometimes we find ourselves working on a project. Maybe we will finish it like in 4 weeks, but there is a law coming in 2 weeks which mandates doing this and this and that. Okay, so did you find yourself in such a scenario? Did you witness it? Maybe yes, maybe not. Definitely one day you will face it, you will go through it. Yes, okay, whether it's a government regulation, whether it's a technical obligation, etc. Now, which two actions should you take as a project manager until the approval is received? Okay, now either you can hire a vendor with required expertise and infrastructure to complete the testing. Yes, you know what? Hiring somebody a vendor, they have the infrastructure, they have the expertise to complete the testing. But here there is a problem. Now, this regulation is coming in 2 weeks. Okay? Now, we just heard of it. The project manager is informed that this regulation is expected in 2 weeks. Now, in how much time, really, can we hire a vendor with the expertise, with the proper infrastructure to complete the testing? Like, can it be done in 1 hour, in 24 hours? If we go back to the way, we manage procurements, usually we need to define our requirements, have a request for create a request for proposal, then send out the request, organize a bid conference, exactly a bidder conference. Have a number of offers from vendors, in order to ensure transparency, and we give everyone the same chance. Okay, so we're being really fair with everyone. All right. Can we do that really quickly? Because usually hiring a vendor, it takes longer than 2 weeks. If we really want, to be fair, be transparent, we have, a first, round of offers, then, we filter them, then we go to the, with the selected vendors for evaluation. I think that the time here does not allow us really, like, just 2 weeks. I don't think 2 weeks is enough, to hire somebody, even though it might be a good option. But yeah, it will cost. It will add extra cost. But can it be done? Can it be done in 2 weeks? And you know what? Even if it's done now, still there is a lot of work to be done. And the vendor will need to to learn a little bit about our project. It's an option that people might think of. I don't know about their budget policies in the companies, if they really can do that. Stop testing immediately and escalate the issue. Well, some people might do that, but not so many, because stopping the testing immediately, they know actually we're running now out of time, like we're fighting with the time. So stop testing, no. Escalate, yeah, maybe some people would escalate, but stop testing immediately, I don't think so. Okay, I don't think people would stop testing. Even if they would escalate, they wouldn't stop testing, because they know they will run out of time if they stop testing. They're already running out of time. Okay, allow testing to continue for the complete duration, as the policy may not apply to ongoing projects. Well, this is a radio testing frequencies, radio frequency testing project. So actually, it will, I think, apply to our ongoing projects. Okay, I don't think that fits with the context. I don't think it fits with the context. Update the project risk checklist to consider licensing and approvals for risk identification. Yes, because if we didn't, we will not get the testing done on time, then definitely we will have a problem with licensing and approvals. Okay, so that should be identified as a risk. Now, yes, you as a project manager, you need first of all, to put, to identify such a risk. Okay, yes, if we will not finish on time, we might not get the license and approval in order to, go into production. All right, so yes, we need to identify that as a risk as a project manager, definitely. And what also, let's read, the last sentence. Reallocate the testing resources to complete testing early before the policy takes effect. Now, between options A and E, now in real life scenarios, I'm not talking about the exam. In real life scenarios, hiring a vendor takes time, but here, reallocating the resources, they know the context. They're already in-house. We have them. So what we need to do is reallocate more testing resources. Try to finish the testing early before the policy takes effect. I think most companies, most project managers, even if they consult with the sponsors, with the key stakeholders, even if they consult with the steering committee, I think most of them would choose, to mobilize testing resources. Try to complete testing early before the policy takes effect, because for them that's quicker. That's even cost saver, but that's quicker, because here the main constraint here is time. So if you ever face yourself, if you're ever in such a scenario, you probably think about the constraints you have. So you see, guys, here with this series of questions or this series of scenarios, we're trying to help you figure out how to act in real life. I'm not trying to help you just pass the exam, answer correctly the questions of the exam and get the certification. Actually, I'm trying to help you figure out how to act in real life. Okay, so we're making this series of videos to help you with that. All right, let's have one more scenario, right? So, an organization is transitioning to agile delivery, and a new team has been assembled. Now, this happens all the time. Okay. Now, in nowadays, a lot of organizations are transitioning to agile. They would like to be, quicker, have more, of an agile mindset, and they create new teams. Yeah, that happens a lot. Now, a project is not going well because the variation of the team velocity is very high, and every sprint delivers less than committed. Now, the team is not constant in their velocity. Okay, they're a new team. Their velocity is actually varying a lot, and actually they're not fulfilling their commitment of story points. Whatever story points they commit to, they cannot complete them. And you see, I think, guys, 80% of you who are working in a agile context, they know that, they have gone through that, or they're going through that already. Yes, we have teams who cannot, deliver what they have committed to from one sprint to another. Yes, that happens. Now, here, a new project lead with a strong technical background has been assigned to the project. Now, what does the term project lead mean? Now, guys, I think we have mentioned before, there are many terms describing different roles, like project planner, project leader or project lead, project controller, project engineer, project manager, etc., etc. Okay, so there are many different terms. Yes. Now, some people might say the term project lead is closer to the mindset of an agile coach, somebody who helps the team self-organize, provides them with what they need, is a conflict resolver, a motivator, rather than somebody acting like a project manager, like some micromanaging, or even not micromanaging but managing, like planning, controlling, etc. So some people would say like the term project lead might fit more with the agile context, and the term project manager might fit more with the waterfall context. Yeah, we will not go into that now, but yeah, but let's look at this. Now here we have a situation. So sometimes companies, they go for the option of having a new project lead with a strong technical background, assigned to the project. Now, what should this lead do here? Okay. Now, if you were in such a scenario, what would you do with a team having a variation of velocity, not meeting their commitment? All right. So, what would you do? Now, would you ask that estimations be provided only by senior developers? Yes. I mean, I don't mean that's the correct answer, but yes, some people might do that. Yes, some people might say, you know what? The problem with the estimations and not meeting the estimates, or like the committed study points, is because people with less experience are contributing to estimations. But if we just have estimates coming only from senior developers, we can have more accurate estimates, and this way the senior developers, they will estimate based on the capacity of their team or their colleagues, and then we can actually have higher chance of meeting the committed capacity or story points. Okay, some people might choose that, but is that the right way to act here? Is that really how PMI wants you to think? Is that really the best approach in projects? I don't think so. Recommend a different estimation method in the retrospective. You know what? We will go back to this after we look at the other options. Allocate more time for estimation in the sprint planning. Well, few people might choose this, but most people know that the sprint planning meeting is timely boxed. They cannot exceed the allotted time, So allocating more time for estimating, I don't think many people would choose this, as an action. I don't mean as an answer. No, I don't mean as an answer in the exam, but as an action, because they know that the sprint planning is timely boxed. And for those who choose to act, in such a way, to act in this way in such a scenario, I need to tell them that, guys, remember, really, like meetings and events in Scrum, they're timely boxed, okay? Or in Agile, they're timely boxed mainly, okay? So, yeah. So I don't think that's the best really approach, the best solution, all right? Review and update the estimation of the daily stand-up. I think people don't do that. I think now most people in projects, in agile projects, they know that actually the daily stand-up is limited to 15 minutes. I think most companies know, usually in daily stand-ups, we have 3 questions to answer. And I think, there is now higher knowledge, more and more knowledge, among companies, project team members, etc., about, how these daily stand-ups should be conducted. Everyone at the development team, the technical team, they will answer these 3 questions. And we really don't, review or update estimates. So actually here, the best course of action, what you're left with actually is try to use different estimation method, okay? Because here the problem, with not meeting the committed story points is maybe the estimation method was not good, was not proper. Okay, so maybe you need to review that. Now, if some people would say, but here answer B is not actually very precise. Yes, but the other answers actually they're not good. Yes, B might not be so precise, even though it addresses like not probably so straight or not so precisely, but it does address somehow the problem. It says, you know what, go, why don't you change your estimation method? But the other answers, the other ways how people might act are actually not the best. Like, just estimating with the senior developers, or asking for more time for estimating, or review the estimates during the daily stand-up. I don't know. Those are not the right course of actions we need to take, The right course of action we need to take is here, based on what we're left with. And actually, that's what we would do in real life. In real life, we just review our estimation method and figure out what's wrong with it and maybe change it. Okay? So actually, that's what we would do in real life scenarios. Okay? All right. So, I just wanted to make this video, I wanted to make it short. The next series of videos trying to put you guys in real life scenarios using the various mock questions we have from the PMP course. We try, the next videos will be longer. Actually, we try to address 20 scenario per video, but for now, we will just make this first video shorter so you get used to the concept of this post-PMP training series, and then, we will have longer videos. Thank you for watching, guys, okay?